Hello, everybody. Son Adelaja here from Kyiv, Ukraine. I'm back with you today to continue the series, a new series that I just started. It's called Understanding Suicide, Mass Shooting, and Depression. I did part one yesterday, which was the first. It was actually the first video in this series about depression, and there is a reason for that because whenever you see mass shooting, it is almost always connected to depression. Same with suicide. Yes, you will not have the opportunity to ask from the person who committed suicide why he did it, but if you could, turn the clock back, you will discover that it's connected with suicide. Maybe nobody detected it, but suicide is responsible for 99% of, depression is responsible for 99% of suicide and mass shooting. It's a pity that mass shooting is only noticeable and mostly seen in America. This because of because of the liberty they have with the guns and the freedom to own guns that people have, so the guns are easily accessible. But even in other cultures, you will see that people kill, homicide happen all the time. And most of these homicides as a result of people who have been suffering from depression. But one of the major reasons why I personally have decided to address this topic, the topic of suicide, mass shooting and depression, is because, I'm an African. And for an African to suffer from depression is something like out of this world. It's not depression is not an African disease. But you know what? The world is changing. And things that we thought to be abnormal to Africans are now becoming the regulars. When I began to see the rate of suicide and the rate of people committing suicide and killing themselves in my country, Nigeria, and all over Africa, that is when I knew that yes, it's now time to talk about this topic. So it's taken me like 3 years, almost 4 years, that I've started to research on this topic, and I'm going to give you a thorough breakdown because it took me 3 years minimum to study it in details. And when I study a topic, I always try to come across as a specialist and as so much that you almost not find a better resource than what I'll be able to give you when I step out to talk about it. So that's what it's going to be about. I'm going to be talking about dealing with the issues of mass shooting, suicide, depression, in a way that maybe you've never seen it before or nobody has ever dealt with it. So I would like to encourage you to go share this message with as many people as possible, and also to watch the whole series of it. Not just the individual topics that you like, but make sure you go through the whole series. And that's why I start by mentioning the series, which is Understanding Suicide, Mass Shooting, and Depression. But I started by talking about depression because depression is the root of everything. Everything starts with depression. So, and like I said in the last teaching, that World Health Organization has rated depression as the #1 killer in the world and the most serious health challenge of our generation. And if Africans are now committing suicide, if Africans are now suffering from depression, despite the fact that we know that they are always happy. I mean, Africa has a lot of mysteries and a lot of deprivation and a lot of sufferings, a lot of poverty, those things are enough to get anyone depressed for ages. But Africans have been living with those things, and they have also been the most some of the most happiest people in the world. And whenever you see Africans, they are always expressing joy, happiness, and excitement. Those are the things you don't normally see in Europe because Africans are not familiar with depression. But these days, if those kind of people who have survived hunger, who have survived death, diseases, colonization, and didn't go into depression, are now going into depression now, it means something serious is really happening with the health issues of our world. So I would only agree with World Health Organization. And that's why I think that Africans should begin to tackle these issues, should begin to nub this nub this in the bud, and begin to, let people's eyes open and begin to identify these issues that we have a problem in our hands. And not just Europeans and Americans have this problem now, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's a worldwide problem. But when you talk about Europe, of course, I think in the average, over 60% of Europeans have taken one antidepressant pill or the other. They are on medications most of the time. Over 50% of the whole continent. That is amazing. And when you look at Japan, they have #1 suicide rate in the world. And it's a pity that a lot of people don't really associate suicide to depression. But I know, and I'm telling you, most of those suicide that we see, they are coming as a result of depression. And even the mass shootings that we see are coming as a result of depression. So today I'm going to talk about, I'm going to continue the topic, which is Understanding Depression Part 2. Understanding Depression Part 2. So it's Part 2 that I'm going to be talking about today. Understanding Depression Part 2. Understanding Depression Part 2. So please call your friends and let's go for it. So like I've said before, depression is being rated as the top problem, the top health issue problem in the world. Right now, as I'm talking to you, from in every continent, there are people suffering from depression. And not just suffering from depression, there are people committing suicide, which is the highest stage of depression. As I'm talking right now, at the most conservative statistic says that between 300 and 400 million people are suffering from depression. Right now, today, as you are hearing me right now, minimum 300 million people, between 300 to 400 million people. You know what 300 million people means? That's the whole population of America suffering from. It's like the whole of America is wiped out under depression. It's more than America. It's more than Nigeria. It's more than Japan. It's more than Brazil. It's 2 times the population of Russia. It's half the, it's almost, it's a large percentage of the whole world suffering from this thing. 300 to 400 million every day. Some of them, but unfortunately, most of these people don't even know that they are suffering from this. And the 300, 400 million people are the ones who are been identified clinically as suffering from depression. What about the people back in Africa, in Asia, that have not been identified, who don't even know what is happening to them or what they're going through? And that is a huge problem. So if 300 to 400 million people suffer from depression on a daily basis, what about people who actually die as a result of depression, or who actually die from suicide? Because depression, when it keeps on growing and is not treated, gets to a point where people just want to take their lives. So right now, every year, close to 1 million people. Every year, some statistics says 800,000 people commit suicide. You know what that means? 800,000 people committing suicide. That's like every 40 seconds. So while you are listening to me, since you've been listening to me now, we've had about 10 people committed suicide. Almost, that is, if it is 800,000 people commit suicide a year, that means every 40 seconds somebody commits suicide. If it is 1 million people, every 30 seconds somebody commits suicide. So if we have 1 million people committing suicide every year, this is more than something we could just ignore. We cannot ignore this anymore. we have to take it serious. This is a sickness and a challenge that has to be taken serious by everybody. We'll all have to take this very serious, and we need to begin to, because depression could come to any family. It's not depending on your class, it's not depending on your status, it's not depending on your wealth, on your poverty level, it's not depending on your age, it's not depending on your sex, it's not depending on what you have or you don't have. It's a sickness. Just like you could get headache, you could get cancer. Those are sicknesses. And you could get heart disease. Those are sicknesses. That's how we must begin to look at this. This is also a sickness that we all have to take very seriously. And if we say, oh, okay, I'm fine, what about your son or your daughter or your husband or your wife or your relative or your neighbor? And when anybody is depressed around you, you know what? Everybody around them suffers. So it's not a topic that you could say you could just neglect or ignore. No, because if you ignore it, it will come to you one way or the other. It could come to you through somebody that you just meet in the street, on the street. It could come to you through maybe your neighbor, or maybe your client, or maybe your business partner, or maybe your child, or your son, your daughter, your church member, your pastor. It's a sickness. So we need to understand this. We need to know, be able to know what to do with it. So in America right now, let me give you the statistics in America. Can we show the statistics in America? In America right now, depression is one of the most common mental disorder. Depression has been recognized not just by the World Health Organization but by America as the leading mental health issue in the country. And but like I say, it's not talking about psychiatric situation, just talking about, they call it mental health issue, but it's talking about when the soul is sick. Just like the body could be sick, the soul could be sick as well. So in America, each year, people, 16.1 million, this is from a few years ago, so 16.1 million adults. Adults are from 18 years old till like 90. 16 million people suffer, 16.1 million people suffer from depression in America alone. 16 million. It's like everywhere you go, you just see people who are depressed. But you will not know, because it's not physical. Depression is not the sickness of the body. It's not the sickness of physical body. It's a sickness of the soul. So that 16 million people means 6% of America, 6.7. Actually, it should be about 7% of Americans are depressed. These are clinically depressed people, people who have been certified as sick. Then if you're going to talk about the adolescents, young people before the age of 16 or before the age of 18, 3 million of them in America are suffering from depression. And that constitutes 12.5% of American population. This is adolescents from the age of 12 to 17. There are how many of them in the country? And there are 3 million of them that are suffering. 12% of adolescents are suffering from depression. And that's why they commit suicide. That's why they go on mass shooting spree. Even children now suffer from depression. 2% of school-age children and 1% of preschoolers suffer from depression in America. So that's a big problem right there, and that means we all have to address this issue, and it could come to your country. It could come. So if we are talking about 16%, about 6% of the population among adults, almost 10% of the population suffering from depression. These are just adults. The possibility of you running into one is very high. In some countries, we might actually have them more, because there are no diagnoses, there are no people to identify them. But besides that, if 12 12% of adolescents between the age of 12 to 17 suffer from depression. And I think that explains the reason why adolescents always misbehave. You know, teenagers, it's always difficult for teenagers, you know, for you to have common language with them. And a lot of people have been wondering, what is the problem with teenagers? Why is it that most teenagers have problems and they have issues? Not all of them, but most of the adolescents and teenagers, 12% of them just in America, is as a result of depression. So, and their parents could be, you know, wondering, what is this? That's why this series, I encourage everyone to listen, especially parents, so that you'll be able to understand what is happening to your child. So that a father, a mother will be able to know, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And you could act on time before it gets to the top stage of people going to commit suicide. But the most awful thing here is that even school age children also could suffer from depression. And they are the ones who are closer to God. They are the ones who just came from heaven, and they're the ones who are supposed to have the life of God the most. Yeah, maybe that's why the percentage is less. Only 2% of school-age children suffer from depression, and 1% of those who have not even gone to school, preschool children, also 1% of them suffer from depression. This is in America. So if this is affecting toddlers, we parents need to know about this. If this is affecting school-age children, you will not even know, if you are not careful, if you don't know this subject, you will not even know what is wrong with them. You will just be wondering, you will just be treating them of different kind of things, and you will not know that it is depression. And then we'll talk about teenagers, we'll talk about adults. It's a topic that we all need to take serious, and we are going to, I'm going to try my best to give maximum explanation of what depression is and how to deal with it. Now, a lot of people are saying, so how did people live before us? What about people who lived before now? Well, you know what scientists have discovered is that the rate of depression grows from generation to generation. From one it's like it is raising. It was not as high in every nation, even in America. Depression is a new phenomenon. It's not as common. Maybe it has been there in the world somewhere in history, but it has not been to epidemic level as it is now. So depression has grown with age, through ages. But another sad thing about depression is that most people who suffer from depression are women, especially among the adults. Most people who suffer from depression are women, because women have a lot of challenges. And I'm very sorry that men don't always understand this, because men often think that women are just supposed to be happy all the time. Women are just supposed to be jolly happy and jumping around, and women are actually supposed to be giving them good mood. And they think that women never have any problem, and women don't have any problem. But if you listen to my family series, then you will see that no, women, they have more problems than the men. And when you look at men, most of the time they're always looking dull, and you think they are depressed. But clinically, the most depressed people are actually women, because women have a lot of things to deal with. One, adult women have to deal with menstruation every month. That alone could bring about depression if you're not careful, because a lot of changes are happening in the body. So we need to relate to women with understanding, and that's what the Bible says. The Bible knows this. I mean, the Bible is just wonderful. He said, treat your wife, relate with women with understanding. Give them understanding, because they're going through a lot that you don't even know about. Apart from that, women go through post-traumatic stress disorder, especially during pregnancy or during birth. Pregnancy itself it could lead to depression, because it's a stress to the body. And besides the stress to the body, is a change of lifestyle. Besides that, is a whole lot of inconveniences. So pregnancy could lead to depression. Then women go through birth, the birthing process. And you've heard about it, that 10% of all women that give birth to children end up being depressed. And some of them 10% end up in the psychiatric hospital. That is beyond depression. That is a mental situation now. Psychiatric hospital, disorder, insane, because of the stress that comes upon their body. But about 40% of the women, maybe actually more, I can't remember the statistics now. I think it's between 40 and 60% of women go through post-birth, post-anal depression. So after birth depression. Up to 60% of women go to experience some form of depression after they give birth to their children. So, we really need to. So when the Bible says that we should treat women as a weaker vessel and as weak vessels, I mean, I'm just wondering, how could Bible have everything in it? How could God be so considerate about everything that we will deal with, that we will ever deal with in life? So that's how we should treat women, as a weaker vessel. How do you treat a weak vessel? If you take a glass and that is, it's fragile. So that is how you treat a woman, like something that is fragile. And you take it with care. You don't want to just throw it everywhere anyhow. But that is how some people treat women. They treat them anyhow. But you are supposed actually to treat them like fragile beings, people that could be wounded. That's why women are emotional. They could be easily wounded. And that's why what we call capriciousness of women coming. And it's not because they want to be capricious. It's just because their mood is capricious. Their nature is capricious. That's just the way they are built. It doesn't depend on them. So so attitude to women could really help to prevent a lot of the depression among women. But right now, to one man that is depressed, we have 2 women that are depressed. So the statistic is 1 to 2. If you have 10 men that are depressed, there are 20 women that are depressed. So if we have 1 million people that are depressed, it means that 1 million men that are depressed, then there are 2 million women that are depressed. But then again, depression crosses borderline. It crosses the race line. Every race, people are now being depressed. In every ethnic group, people are being depressed. In every socio-economic status, you find people who are depressed. Any age, you find people who are depressed in any age. Can you show this? I'm going to show you an illustration here, a banner that we got from somewhere. It says 1 in 8 women experience depression in their lifetime, twice the rate as men. So you see, in that picture you are seeing, those are 8 figures right there, 8 of them. And out of that 8, you see the blue one of them is depressed. And you will not know which one. So anybody could suffer from depression at any time. And we don't know who is going to do it, who is going to be the one. So depression is real. And we need to learn how to deal with it even much more seriously, not to be trivial in relation to depression. But there is another problem with depression, because scientists now have discovered that when someone is depressed, there are a number of changes that take place in their body. So depression leads to a whole chain of changes that are not good in the body of anybody that is depressed. So when someone is depressed, if you don't identify on time and you don't begin to do something about it, one thing leads to another. That depression will, it's like I said, that depression is like being blind, deaf, crippled, and with no legs and no feet at the same time. Because the process of depression drags the whole body, the whole soul into it. And so this depression is a sickness of the soul, which means it affects your emotions, it affects your feelings, it affects your thought process, it affects your mind sometimes. But people might not say it, but you know something is happening to you. But eventually, people have now discovered that people who are suffering from depression, that even though it's not a physical disease, it's not a physical sickness, but that sickness of the soul will eventually affect your physical body as well, physical health. And depression, a continuous stage of depression, could also eventually begin to tell on the body of the person that is sick. It could lead to heart attack. It could lead to stroke. It could lead to diabetes. It could lead to ulcer. It could lead to obesity. It could lead to many other disease. And that's other disease when people don't eat, when girls don't want to eat. And that also could be a result of depression. So depression could lead to physical sickness as well, not just to death by suicide, not just to mass shooting of killing other people, but depression could actually also lead to a heart attack, stroke, diabetes, and many other things like that. A lot of experts have come to agree that there are so many complex reasons for depression. Too complex. It's not easy to just say it's one thing that is responsible for depression. The people who have been doing research about this have said that it's a complex factors. There are a lot of complex factors that could lead to depression. It could be social reasons. Social reasons could be maybe you had a quarrel with your wife or your husband. Maybe you have disagreement with your parents. Maybe you are not doing well in class, in school. Maybe your friends say bad things about you. That could lead to depression. So social factors could lead to depression, could be an explanation to depression. Psychological reasons too could lead to depression. There might be psychological reasons like you don't feel well about yourself. You think you are not beautiful, you are ugly, or you are not as good. You didn't get what you wanted to get at a particular time. Things are not working out for you. You think you are a loser, or you fail in life endeavors, or your efforts are not crowned with success. A lot of psychological inner reasons could also be a reason for depression. Even biological factors could be a reason for depression, because some people if you have an accident and it changes your life. A lot of people who have accident or who have disability, physical challenges or physical factors, biological challenges, a lot of them end up being depressed because they just don't know how to live further, how to deal with what they are going through. So people who go through social changes, social, physical, biological changes could also end up being depressed. Somebody who loses his job, for example, could end up being depressed. Someone who loses his loved one could end up being depressed. Someone who experiences a traumatic heartbreak or traumatic experience could end up being depressed. And those are just the most obvious factors that could lead to depression. But there's other factors also that might not be so obvious. So there are reasons why people could be depressed. Okay, let's look at this this illustration here. So here is a quick facts about depression from America. So it says depression is both a brain disorder and a state of mind. The brain is unique. It is the only organ whose function we consciously experience because the brain is the organ of the mind. So this in America also, over 18, if you are 18 and above, okay, I said it was 16 million there, but they said here is 18 million people. Depression affects 18 million adults, 1 in 10, that's in America, in any given year. So 1 out of 10 adults, not just in America, I think maybe all over the world, is suffering from depression. And depression is the leading cause of disability for people, adult people from the age of 15 to 44. So it's the leading form of disability, and is the cause of it, is the leading cause of disability as well, much more than accident or anything else. Depression is the primary reason why someone dies of suicide every 13 minutes. You say, here, maybe this in America, but worldwide, is every 40 seconds somebody is dying from depression. Every 10 seconds, which means 1 million people died from suicide every year. So here also it says depression affects over 300 million, between 300 to 400 million people worldwide, regardless of culture, age, gender, religion, race, or economic status. So depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide and is a major contributor to the overall global burden of disease. This is from Policy Lab source, hopefordepression.org. Depression facts. All right. So yes, these are the issues and the reality that people have to deal with when we are talking about depression. But tomorrow, I think my time is up. I will come back to you tomorrow and talk about the symptoms of depression. Symptoms of depression. How do you know? How do you feel when you are depressed? How do you know that you are depressed? So that's what I will talk about tomorrow. But before I go, I want you to pay attention to this book here. It's called How to Regain Your Lost Years. How to Regain Your Lost Years. Because when you are suffering from depression, and even if you are not suffering from depression, you lose your years, because a lot of time just passes you by. You don't even know what is happening. You don't even know how to maximize that time that is passing by. This book will really help you to regain all your lost years, both for people suffering from depression and people who are regular people who have all lost a lot of years. Some have lost years to religion and things like that. Please get the book. The book will help you. You can get them on Amazon. If you're in Africa, you can get them on dsabooksplanet.com. That's one word, dsabooksplanet.org. But if you want to get my if you want to get my books in bulk, you could write to my office, because it will be cheaper for you that way. And the way to write is to go to write to dsasbooks@gmail.com. dsasbooks, one word, dsasbooks@gmail.com. Yeah, so that's where we are probably going to end today's teaching. And go and share this message with your friends. If you want to join my mentorship program, go to sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. If you want to join our Nigerian trip project, go to sundayadelajablog.com/Nigeria. And I'll be back tomorrow to talk about how to identify depression. Peace.